Nexus revolution. Bitcoin is immune from attack.
All right, guys, welcome back to the Crypto Show's Digital Cash Evolution right here on the Bloomberg Network. And today we're talking with someone from Nexus Earth. I know we've talked before with Dash Nexus, which is a little bit different. This is a separate project altogether, not a project that accents Dash, but a separate coin altogether. And it has some very interesting features. I've spoke myself with the creator, Colin Cantrell, and it's well known that Nexus is a space coin. And we'll ask Brian about why it's a space coin. Is it just far out or what? You know, hey Brian. So Brian Smith, how are you?
I'm doing well. Working on our own space coin here, Nexus. And I can answer that question straight up. It's because we're putting a low Earth orbit mesh network of satellites up. The first one is to launch in early 2019.
So before we go too far ahead, why don't you introduce yourself, Brian? Tell us your role in the project and just a brief overview of the project beyond what you just mentioned.
Okay. Yeah, my name is Brian Smith. I came onto the project late last year. My number one role is to basically do any of the software engineering that needs to be done that would normally take away time from Colin. So I am basically a floater, and so far what that has meant is pretty much everything, including websites all the way to the new interface that's being designed. And I mean, I've even sat down and helped him with parts of the code in the back end.
Awesome.
Great. Yeah, I'm glad to hear that. So I think what we wanted to dive into is, for our audience, there's a lot of merchants out there, there's business owners, there's investors. What is if I were an investor, how could I get involved with the Nexus project?
Currently, we're listed on all the three major exchanges and a few other ones. You would have to get accounts on Binance or Bittrex or Cryptopia. In order to exchange another cryptocurrency for ours. There is no direct way to get it yet, although we are working on that always, as most cryptocurrencies are at this point. But there's a bit of a flood, if you know what I mean.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. So there's a staking operation in this token also, right?
Yes. Yeah. So once you have a certain amount of our coin, it's worth setting it up in a wallet and not keeping it on exchanges, which we know are notoriously taken down from time to time. So you can actually store your Nexus coin in the Nexus Wallet, and when you do that, you can unlock for what's called staking, and you can earn interest on your coin.
And is this the Tritium coin or token, or how does that?
Oh, it's all just Nexus at this point.
Okay.
Nexus, the coin itself, and we have what we call a variable interest. It goes from right as you get your Genesis block, a 0.5% interest, all the way up to 3% interest over the course of what breaks down to be about 365 days.
You know, recently there's been talk about quantum computing being able to hack different blockchains. How does Nexus blockchain differ from that?
Well, we already use a higher level of encryption. I have the stats on that. I can pull them up. I'm not really a numbers guy personally, but I do know that we are way more secure than some of these other coins, which we're already starting to see some of them come down.
Yeah, and there was recent hacks with Zencash and a few others. How about the 3D blockchain? Do you have a grasp of that? I mean, it's a weird concept. I actually came to your office and Colin explained it to me, and it was still hard to grasp.
Yeah, it's actually something I have a relatively good grasp on. So if you think of your timeline as one direction in a graph, blocks have to come in sequentially along the timeline, and that's how you get a blockchain. So basically all we do is we say, instead of taking those large chunks of time to make a block, break it up into smaller portions, and you have the extra dimension of having a lot of those tinier ones happening in parallel. And that's where we get then a cross-reference of those, build out a full block in Nexus, and we still have our blockchain where we still have that sequentialness to it, but we're adding the ability to process transactions in parallel.
Okay, so it really does add like another dimension stacked on top of the existing kind of hard chain. Is that right?
Yep.
Nice.
And was it two are running in parallel? I guess there's two proof of work or proof of trust running in parallel being verified by a proof of work?
Okay, so you're talking about our different channels.
Yeah.
That is actually something completely different from a 3D blockchain. Our different channels are the prime mining, the traditional hashing, and also then our proof of stake, which is a different type of channel. So we have two proof of work channels, the primes and the hashing. Primes calculate dense prime clusters, and you get rewarded for doing that. So our blockchain does work on the scientific side as well. So we're doing work for the scientific community. Those numbers are available as we calculate them.
Well, that's cool. So you're calculating primes as a part of the proof of work system for the chain itself, and that work, some of that effort goes to scientific endeavors. Is that right?
Oh, it should make a lot of people's lives a lot easier when we get into what primes really mean down the line, because that's big number theory, and we only find use for those when you start looking into things such as cryptocurrencies, where we're using extremely large numbers and equations to basically encrypt our data. So prime numbers will be important for that in the future.
I have heard that, and I'm actually I just came across this need for deeper and bigger primes very recently, at least on a level of understanding of it, because I know it's been in the space for a while, but being a software developer, you don't always get exposed to that level of cryptography unless you're really getting into the math or the science of it. So yeah, I think it's great that you guys are involved in that. So the mining aspect has two pieces, which is the primes and the hashing. Is that 256 SHA kind of standard Bitcoin style hashing, or is it a different kind of hash?
It's a different kind. It's a different. It's
714 or 571, I think.
Yeah, like I said, I'm not really into the numbers. It's a little bit different. We are ASIC resistant still, although we did just get a new kind of prime miner built for us.
Oh, that's cool. So, and then you also had the proof of stake, and how does that? You're able to earn interest on that proof of stake, and how does that work?
It's just the way any kind of it's think of it like a savings account kind of system where you are in charge of your own savings account, and being on the network, you earn what's called a trust rating. And then you get after a period of time, and that's variable, depends on how difficult it is at the time to do your proof of stake. You'll get a Genesis block, and then you'll get a key with that. And based on the age of your coins, it calculates out how long up until then you've been holding your coins. And that's why you'll see like a larger reward for a Genesis block. And then you'll get trust blocks as trust is created on the network. Which is also variable trust. You go from 0 to 100% trusted.
And do you have to run a node along with those tokens in order to contribute into validations and such?
Technically, if you're running a Nexus wallet, you're running the Nexus backend, which is a node in the common sense of the word, but it's not like you're running a seed node. Some of our more devoted individuals in our network run nodes that can take a heavier load, just because we build in the abilities for people to create what's called the seed node, and those are automatically picked up and dropped as they're found on the network.
Okay. And so all of these economic mechanisms, which are all very interesting to me, by the way, and an interesting experiment in, investing and merchant spaces, all of this really is to bring value to the community by getting digitized blockchains in space so that it's more accessible to everybody. What's the end game look like?
I would say that it's actually just to show people the value that they already have. I wouldn't say it's to bring value out of anywhere, create it. We're literally just showing each other, hey, I want to talk to you, I want to communicate with you, and I want to have a valued trust with you, but I have no idea who you are. And I feel like that's the kind of thing we're looking at here in the future. We're bringing value into a a trustless system and allowing people to trust each other.
Okay. So yeah, I don't want people to be like confused if they're looking at Nexus Earth as a potential investment that is necessarily a space coin, because it's not like you guys are trying to get us to Mars, right? That's not necessarily the goal. You're really wanting to connect everybody on the Earth by way of space, right?
Yeah, and the way to connect everyone on Earth would be to give everyone the internet, and we're working on creating the ground structure, the mesh network to facilitate that.
Done with.
Where it's never been.
And what they're planning on using are CubeSats. Do you have a quick description of a CubeSat?
Oh yeah, sure. It's they're really tiny. I've seen a picture of one, but basically it's a low Earth orbit satellite. It's built in with the reason why we use low Earth is so we can use smaller power system, smaller everything. We can put a lot of them up at once, and then they don't actually interfere with any of the larger communication satellites and systems that are out there right now. And they are put up there with the intent that after a certain period of time in low Earth orbit, they'll fall back to Earth. So we don't have to worry about, maintaining systems that are going to be in space for, the long term. We have like a built-in 5-year plan for each one of them. As we put them up, will come back down.
Oh, that's great. I love to hear when development teams or software teams have maintenance in mind, even if we're going to throw everything away.
And it's really not all that far-fetched. You guys do have a connection to some space organization, right?
Yep. It's Vector Space.
Right. And so Colin the Creator, his dad worked with Elon Musk, I believe.
Yep.
So, yeah, you guys are no stranger to space, apparently.
Yeah, I'm also not a stranger to space. I moved to this company actually from a space oriented company, Lockheed Martin. So.
Oh, very nice.
Yeah.
Cool. Thanks for coming on the show, Brian. Appreciate your time. And I think how can people get in touch with you in the future?
Actually, you can join our Slack community. I'm in there on a regular basis. You can join our Discord, and you can find all of those links on nexusearth.com. And I have my profile up there. I think I might have my Facebook linked. I'm not sure. I can check with the guy on that.
Let's talk about Tritium and the difference between Ethereum as far as the modular. What's that?
Got my Tritium white paper right here.
Nice.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
So tell us about Tritium. I honestly, I hadn't come across it in my research yet, but I'm just doing like a cursory kind of first level, top level. Who are the people? What is the project? Kind of big goals kind of stuff right now. So I was going to get there eventually.
Yeah.
so tell me about it.
And so the way it was explained to me, and I'll let him go forward, but that Ethereum is this big ball of code that's hard to extract certain parts from, which makes it easier to be a target. And with Tritium, it's more modular so that you don't have to add in things you don't need. Am I right? Or how is that?
So they're two completely different animals at this point. While you are doing some good comparisons, it's almost like comparing apples and oranges. While we're still a cryptocurrency, Ethereum has taken on this massive undertaking of creating all these tokens, and the infrastructure that they build themselves on is very similar to that of Bitcoin in its original form. And I can't speak to all of their development updates, but I can speak to some of ours. And Tritium it's completely reworked from the ground up. And the reason we did that was we needed to go through and understand what every single part of the code was doing. And in order to do that, the best way to do that in a software engineering environment such as this is to rewrite it all. I mean, it's not reinventing the wheel, it's reinterpreting it.
Yeah. I can agree with that. As a software developer, I don't know if you know, but I've been in the software industry for about 20 years, and mostly on the front end, I've designed databases and gone through to the back end, and lots of middleware, lots of APIs, lots of API consumption. And I would totally agree. I've been on projects, and I just want to support you just for a minute. I've been on projects where the owners of the projects think that they're about 80% complete with the project. And we come in and we do an assessment, and we realize that the last 20%, the last mile is always the most expensive, and oftentimes that can cost 10 to 20 times as much as the previous, what they thought was 80% complete, right? And in many cases, it's all very often less expensive, in fact, to just rewrite from scratch. Just let's take what we've learned, let's take all the processes and evaluate those and make sure that those are appropriate as we're re-implementing it in a new way. And I think that's one of the things that happened with the JavaScript, the Node version of Bitcoin that was put out by Purse, is they reimagined the Bitcoin protocol, but implemented it in a way that was completely compatible with the existing network, but in a modular way. So now that it brought a little bit more power and capability to turning on and off different pieces of it. So is that kind of an accurate assumption that you're kind of doing those kinds of things as you're rewriting it?
We're doing exactly that and more. So what I brought from my being a software engineer into the blockchain environment here at Nexus was to decouple everything. Everything that can be decoupled, decouple it. And for those of you who don't know what that word means, it means make sure that it has a really well-defined interface that it uses and goes through no matter what, and no one's accessing anything in the back of it without permissions specifically to do so.
Right. I like to analogize it to a house. You want to make sure that people are coming in the right doors at the right times and that they're locked up at the right times.
Yep, exactly. So we went through, and that's part of the reason why we have so many different parts now. If you go and look at our repository, it's really broken down into like our lower level library, our lower level blockchain, our lower level ledger. Like we have everything really broken down, and Colin can speak to that more next time you have him on. He's been diving on that end a lot harder than I have. I've been trying to stay focused on what's right in front of me.
Awesome. Do you want to get into the conference?
Texas Bitcoin Conference?
No, the Nexus Conference. It's next month.
Oh, wow. Yeah, Nexus Conference. Let's talk about that for a minute.
Tell us about the Nexus Conference.
Yeah, so it's going to be right here in Phoenix, Arizona, at the Phoenician, and it's set to go off with a lot of style, actually, I would say, this year. It's not going to be as big as last year's conference, but that's okay. It's kind of a bear market anyway.
Right.
So it's hard to get people to spend their well-earned crypto just to come to a crypto conference when it's not going to be worth as much, But the conference itself is set to go off. We have a lot of really good speakers coming in, and I can point you to the nexusconference.com has a list of all of our speakers and sponsors for this year.
Is the word "the" in there?
Yes, it is.
Okay.
That's why I said the.
Just confirm.
I didn't pick the website name. I would have just put it on our regular website, but that's for next year.
Sure.
And who are some of the speakers?
Let me pull it up.
Is Ron Paul coming back?
Oh, I'm not sure yet. Let me just. Oh yeah, it's one of my hot links. I've been on this site quite a bit. So we got Nicholas Thompson. He's the editor-in-chief at Wired Magazine. We got Jay Smith, former vice chairman and Deloitte. Yeah.
Deloitte?
Deloitte.
Right on. So a little bit of finance, a little bit of tech.
Yeah, it should be a really good conference, though. We're going to have hopefully a bunch of fun things to look at, and we have a lot to say. It's been a really productive year at Nexus, so
cool.
It's definitely something that if you're not going to be there, I hope you have time to catch up with it on YouTube and we get that out as well.
Well, I assume we're coming as press anyway, so we'll find out. I know I'll probably be there. So
nice. Can't wait to see you.
All right.
Now, and another big picture kind of thing. If I read correctly, you guys are planning on the first satellite launch in sometime around Q1 2019. Is that the goal?
Yeah.
Awesome. And do you think that's still on track? What does that look like from your perspective?
From my perspective, that is definitely on track. Whether or not unexpected delays come in between now and then, space is a really touchy industry. There could be a hurricane or something that blows through and pushes it. So
right.
Really kind of you're at the whim of nature and also the whim of people when you're in the industry of putting things in space.
Right.
We have the approval, I believe, but I could be wrong.
Oh yeah, the regulatory hurdles.
The regulatory people, they come and go as they please, and they can say, okay, today it's good and tomorrow it's not.
Yeah.
Right.
Awesome.
We like to tiptoe.
Yep.
All right.
Well, thanks again, Brian. Certainly appreciate your time. I think that this is a great project, in my opinion. I'm really excited to see what comes out of Nexus Earth. I personally, actually, I should mention, I just bought some Nexus the other day. I mean, I was doing my research, and I learned enough. And after looking at the charts and everything, I was like, oh, it's probably a good time.
And it's another one with the governance model.
Right.
I can't say whether to or not, but I'd have to say that it's the lowest I've seen it since I joined the team. So
right.
I still believe in the team and also the project. I don't think it's indicative of anything we've done.
Yeah, and we're certainly not financial advice. I am not recommending purchasing Nexus. I just happen to be in a position where I was like, I'm going to get some of that because I think it's a good token.
Yeah. Well, I really appreciate you guys, and have a great day.
All
Happy
right.
Sunday.
Yeah, thanks, Brian. Appreciate your time.
All right.
Yep. Later.